Taylor Shuey is a keto carnivore bodybuilder from Indiana who's doing a few shows this year, and he's probably going to get his pro card pretty quick. We've had him on the show a couple months ago. You can follow him on Instagram. It is TSHUEY. He's the beast with the giant quads. You can't miss him. So he texted me an hour ago asking what happens when you combine eating long, short, and medium chain fatty acids at the same time. So I think that I think it sets you up to store fat personally, which on high fat refeeds, high fat meals, personally, I think that it's best to stick with long chain fatty acids. And that's kind of the biggest project that I've been working on this last week is to get a better understanding of what meat sources are the richest in those long chain fatty acids, and trying not to combine all three different types at the same time because it's overkill. Why would you need it? Like obviously exogenous. We were just talking about exogenous ketones. This would be ludicrous. Nobody would do this. But just to make my point, like it would make no sense to have exogenous ketones, short chain fatty acids like MCT oil, and bacon all at the same time. I mean, that's 4 different types of fat that are gonna digest at 4 different rates. And so I guess I'm just kind of curious as to what your thoughts are there.
I think the long chain fatty acids are more likely to be stored as fats in our fat cells and adipose tissue, especially if the body has sufficient energy already. If you're not that active, especially, and they're released from fat tissue as free fatty acids whenever we need to break them down. The other ones, the short chain fatty acids, the medium chain fatty acids, they're less likely to be stored as fat because they're more rapidly oxidized for energy. They're smaller, so you can they're easier to break down, if you like. And the shorter and the medium chain ones, because of their quicker absorption and transport to the liver, they're actually quickly oxidized, and they are more immediately used for energy as part of the metabolic process, shall we say. And the added benefit is that the short chains can contribute to the production of, as we said, ketones as well, which is obviously an alternate energy source. Because the long chains take longer to process, they're transported via chylomicrons. They can be used for energy by muscles or, as I said, stored. So that the body processes them more differently, and the way they're processed doesn't necessarily completely change into something completely different, simply because there's something else present around them. So for me, it's not something to aim for in terms of I want this much of this chain and this much of this chain and this much of this chain. It's something that I feel shouldn't really be in anyone's mind. It should just be a case of have the meat with the fat on it, whatever that is, and let your body sort everything out. I don't feel it's something that you should actively be worried about personally.
Danielle Fisher, she's a WNBF professional bodybuilder. She's been on the carnivore diet for quite some time because of autoimmune issues. And we are both competing to get, I'm co-hosting and guest posing at this event. She is competing at this event, and everybody competing at this event this weekend has an opportunity to win $500 cash prizes and compete at Mr. America. So it's going to be a fun weekend. I'm picking this week, as you know, using Richard Smith's triple refeed is what I like to call it, because we deplete fats, fill out on fats, fill out on carbs, and then fill out on exogenous ketones in that order. Okay. So Danielle will be doing this in 2 weeks. She's not doing that this week. She's doing that for she's competing again in 2 weeks, and so this is going to be where she does this approach. Okay. So we both have strict instructions from Coach Rich to fill out on long chain fatty acids and not to combine them with short chain MCTs on these specific refeeds. And so I'm just kind of wondering what the logic is behind that, and I'm thinking that if you combine all of them, that just sets you up to store fat, right? And we don't want that. We want it to we want to take time to digest and to slowly fill out over the course of those 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, when Rich is saying take in just the long chains, is basically giving you an opportunity to have longer term energy release, to put it in layman's terms. And
Right.
so he's basically saying, I'm sure he's saying many things, but one of the things, in my perspective, the
Yeah.
benefits of that is if you have that source. So in terms of how much it takes up in your body, it's going to be a lot less than a load of glucose. And so you have this energy in inverted commas here, energy dense substance that can keep you going for a lot longer. And leading into competition, that can be quite useful. And that's why I think that's probably one of the reasons why he's saying that. So I don't think
Yeah.
that's a bad idea.
Cool. Wonderful. Thanks. So let me know if I'm off base at all. But this is kind of how I understand the difference between, and this is how I've been explaining it to my clients, and this is how I've been explaining it to my wife, just to wrap my head around this. But basically, what I understand, the way I understand it is, with carb sources, with a high carb athlete, you got like basically three choices if you want to simplify it into that category. Okay, so you and I both agree that human beings should be in ketosis most of the time and fasted most of the time, and that's like the most ideal time to train, which is personally how I do my training. It's always fasted. But if you're a high carb athlete, that kind of changes things. And if you're gonna train with fuel in your stomach, then you have some choices. I'm gonna train in a half hour. Dextrose is probably a good idea. Like, your body's just going to soak it up and it'll be readily available energy, like fruit. You're going to work out in a couple hours, some bread or some toast or some white potatoes maybe. If you're going to work out in 3 or 4 hours, sweet potatoes are probably a better bet, right? So is it the same idea with fats too? Say, like, but it seems to be exaggerated more. So if I'm gonna
Good question.
if I'm gonna train 3 hours with food in my stomach, a keto brick, coconut flavor, is usually what I go for because it's got MCT oils in it, right? And I know that energy is going to be available for me probably in about 3 hours. I'm going to feel like training. If I have bacon and eggs, I'm stuffed, man. Like, I don't want to train for hours, like probably the rest of the day, to be completely honest. Like, I'd rather just go to bed, but I'm going to feel like a beast tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I kind of on the right track there?
I get what you're saying. What's the carnivore equivalent of almost the GI index, is for want of a better term?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, okay. So my perspective on that is, it's not about what you're eating a few hours before the workout. It's about your diet and lifestyle leading up to that point. So if, let's say, leading up to that point, I don't pick a time frame, like the previous week, 2 weeks, a few days, whatever you want. If you've been eating appropriately for your species leading up to that point, you should be fueled and ready to go anyway. If you've been eating appropriately and things are going well, your body is going to have a suitable amount of genetically predetermined fat available to it, say subcutaneously, that it can call on for reserves for whenever it needs to carry out the metabolic process to provide fuel for you to do your exercise. And so what you eat immediately before is far less important than your diet and lifestyle leading up to that point, in my view. And so if you have something just before,
very good.
If you're going to have anything, personally, I feel something along the lines of C8. If you're going to use a supplement, that would be my go-to. And even if you're going to train in 3 hours or 4 hours from now, have some now and have some later. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you can even use the C8 as a pre-workout, I personally think. So I think that what's important is people follow the diet and lifestyle and don't worry about specific time points leading into something. If your diet and lifestyle is correct, you will be primed and ready to go whenever you need.
Yeah. Wow. Brilliant. Awesome. Cool. On your video amino acid biochemistry intro, I did this entire workout, man, while I listened to it and took as many notes as I could. And
Nice.
I'm just trying to understand all the terms that you're throwing out. And so I'm getting there, man.